a boat weighs tons. And these orcas keep coming back to one thin blade at the stern. That is the weird part. When boats are badly damaged here, the thing that usually fails is steering. Not the whole hull, steering. So here is the question. If they wanted to wreck the whole boat, why keep choosing the one moving part behind it? And why does interest so often drop once that steering is gone? Researchers do not treat this as a general aggression story. What they can describe is a pattern. Stern first, rudder contact, steering problems, then often a loss of interest. This video is about that object. Why the rudder? Why not the hull? And why the interaction often changes once the boat cannot turn. If you saw the first video, that was the wider correction. This is the narrower question it leaves behind. If you did not, here is all you need. These interactions involve one small Iberian orca population. The data is still imperfect, but the pattern is clear enough to track, warn mariners, and test responses. Inside that bigger story, one detail keeps showing up: contact at the stern, centered on the steering system. On many sailboats, the rudder is a single exposed blade behind the keel, a spade rudder. A narrow control surface hanging in the water. That matters because the whales usually approach from the stern, so before they engage much of the boat mechanically, they meet the rudder first. The first important moving structure is not the hull, it is the blade that changes direction. And this is not some tiny detail buried in paperwork. The most frequently approached vessels are medium-length sailboats. In the workshop summary, about 80% of those most frequently approached boats were sailboats. Many of the interacting sailboats were under roughly 12 to 15 meters, depending on the dataset. Then comes the key phrase in the documented sequence, the steering phase. Not just contact, a phase where the rudder becomes the focus. Once you see that, the whole thing tightens up. This is not just orcas hitting boats. A hull is big, solid, and mostly passive. A rudder is small, exposed, and responsive. Push the hull, you hit mass. Push the rudder, it moves. It changes angle, it pushes back through the water. And if the crew is fighting the wheel, the object gets even more reactive. But here's the thing. Reports say the whales often push harder when crews keep speed up or hold the steering. So the more the humans resist, the more feedback the rudder may produce. Researchers framed mitigation in terms of reducing the whale's satisfaction, or reward, from interacting with the vessel and its rudder. Very specific language. Not stop all contact, reduce the reward. And then it gets weird. The object itself may matter more than people first assumed. The workshop notes, whales have been seen playing with rudder pieces once one breaks off, and then leaving the vessel. That does not prove motive, but it is one of the strongest clues in the case. The rudder may not just be where damage happens, it may be the part that keeps the whole interaction alive. If you're into ocean stories where the weird detail changes the whole picture, subscribe. That's what this channel is built for. Which is why mitigation is getting oddly specific. Rudder modifications. Stern area protection. Not glamorous, but neither is losing your steering in a shipping corridor. The easy version would be they attack boats, but the evidence is narrower than that. The hull is much larger than the rudder. If broad destruction were the pattern, you would expect the damage story to look broader too. Instead, severe damage is defined operationally by loss of steering. Boat contact is not the same as boat damage, and boat damage is not the same as general hull targeting. One of the strongest comparison points is what happens with RIBs and motorboats. Those boats are approached too, but they are usually not damaged. According to the workshop, those boats have no rudder or different kinds of rudders, and they can move away at speed. So the layout changes, the outcome changes. There is also a geometry problem here. Protection ideas focus on the stern because the keel limits approach from the bow. Only about 20 to 40% of reported contact cases involved vessel damage. So not every approach turns into destruction. That's worth sitting with for a second. Known. The evidence fits stern and rudder targeting much better than broad hull targeting. Unknown. How much comes from geometry and how much comes from sensory attraction? Motion, sound, texture, prop wash, resistance. The 2022 Working Group report describes a sequence: approach, contact, steering, stopping, disinterest. That matters because it gives the encounter a shape. Not just a hit, a progression. In that report, stopping can happen after repeated blows, after a heavier hit, when the skipper slows or stops, or when the steering system fails. Then comes disinterest. The whales often lose interest and leave after the boat has stopped. Often, not always. Some interactions keep going after the boat stops, which is annoying, scientifically speaking, but real. Official guidance reflects that uncertainty. Slow down if possible. Stop the engine if possible. Turn off autopilot. Do not fight the rudder. Leave it loose and tracking if you can. That is a strange set of instructions unless the steering system itself is part of what is driving the interaction. Average reported interaction duration was about 25 minutes, though some lasted up to 2 hours. Average vessel speed before interaction was about 6 knots. That is a long time to be guessing wrong. And then you get the strangest clue of all. If the rudder breaks off and becomes a separate object, whale attention can shift to the piece itself. So why do they leave? Because the boat stopped moving? Because the rudder stopped resisting? Because the most rewarding part detached? Because sound and water flow changed? We do not know. But this stop and disinterest phase may be the best window into what the whales are actually getting out of the interaction. Scientists can describe the pattern with some confidence: stern approach, frequent rudder focus, a steering phase, and a common stopping disinterest phase. What they cannot yet verify matters just as much. They cannot confirm that the whales think the rudder is a tuna tail. They cannot confirm a single event that started the behavior. They cannot confirm hull color as a trigger. They cannot confirm depth sounders as a proven trigger rather than a plausible cue under discussion. And they do not have unequivocal data showing one best tactic for every encounter. So the missing answer is not some giant dramatic twist. It is a mechanical question. What exactly is rewarding about this object? Its motion, its resistance, its sound, its texture, its effect on the boat? Or some mix of those? Once steering goes, this stops being a wildlife story and becomes a rescue problem. That is why current research is so focused on the stern and rudder zone. Rudder modifications, stern barriers, hotspot mapping, carefully tested acoustic tools. The work is getting more specific because the pattern is getting more specific. This matters beyond sailing too. It is a live example of a large predator locking onto one piece of human technology in a narrow, repeated way. Not the whole machine, one part of it. So the best supported picture is not general damage to boats. It is repeated interaction with the stern's most exposed, most responsive control surface. We can describe that sequence better than we can explain the reward behind it. That is the unresolved piece. If you want the wider story around these encounters, the earlier video covers that broader correction. This one was the mechanism hidden inside it. Because the strangest thing here is not that these orcas hit boats, it is that they keep choosing the steering.